Hey, and welcome to our interview with Kristin. Oh my God, Baer. I'm like, I already mispronounced it, but
It's
so I'm
awesome.
excited that you're here and that you're tuning in to us talk about the authenticity of relationships around collaborations. And like, if you've been watching any of the series or any of the guests that I've been inviting on recently, depending on when you're catching this, we're talking about collaborations, but I'm bringing in relationship experts and connectedness experts and authenticity experts and people who are doing this for their jobs, and who are doing this for leaders, who are doing this for founders, so that we can give tips around some of the questions I know that have come up around collaborations, but having to do specifically with relationships. And, one of the things I always say is that I can talk a good system. I can put a good 1, 2, 3 in place, right? But I myself have been, I'm like a recovering like introvert, right? Recovering like, I always say I'm like recovering from like a relationship recession, and so I still have a lot to learn. And I wanted to open the door to bring on experts like Kristin today on talking about authenticity in relationships and all of that goes into really the deep stuff about collaborations that probably not a lot of people are really talking about in this, around collaborations and relationships specifically, and how that connects. So Kristin Baer is the founder and principal of Brave Boost Leadership. And as a leadership coach, consultant, and facilitator, she supports leaders and their teams to keep growing into authentic alignment and to get confidence and clarity on where they're stuck. How to move, also how to help them move forward, and how to lead from a place of thriving connectedness to their unique spark. Welcome, Kristin.
Thank you
Yay!
so much. I'm so excited to be here, Alicia. You are one of the most authentic people I have
Oh,
connected with. So I love that you invited me to talk about this topic with you.
thank you. That's so sweet. I'm like, too kind, too kind.
So true.
And I actually like bolded in the chat, so I didn't forget. But I want to start the conversation around this term called connectedness for two reasons. One, I think it's like exactly what we're about to get into and talk about with collaborations. But two, when I think about you and like the conversations that we've had off camera, this term connectedness comes to play. So, what does connectedness mean to you, and like what you have to share to the audience today?
Yeah, I love that that comes to mind because that is my focus in leadership development is on connected leadership. I really believe as we are moving so fast, there's so much change. As entrepreneurs, there's so much for us to manage. Really what keeps us grounded and able to have success is that connection. And
Mm.
it's really personal for me because I think I'm so obsessed with connection because when I was younger, I did not feel like I knew how to connect to people. I felt a little bit like the ugly duckling out on the side. I was in a million clubs, I did all the things, but I didn't feel like I was finding those kinds of meaningful, real connections where you feel seen and valued and understood, and you feel like you're able to do that for other people. And it's impacted my life mission is wanting people to feel like they can find those real connections where they're able to fully unleash who they are. They're able to create space for other people to do that. And you get that amazing synergy that can happen. Sometimes it's around a project or around a work thing. And sometimes it's really deep. It's around that deep personal inner work that we're doing. And so I see connections everywhere. I'm a former linguist as well. So my studies were all about finding the connections in language. And now I've just turned that skill to people. How can you see the connections between people and see the connections between all the work that we're doing?
I love that. I love that. So I do want to talk a little bit about, and I might be going rogue here, but I want to talk a little bit about that impact from when you were younger, and how somebody that you may be coaching, that you may be leading through, the situation of like how to be connected to their team, how to be connected to other people as they're an entrepreneur, as they're a leader in business now, and how they may have had a similar experience in the past, how that has impacted them. Can you give us like where you start with someone that you recognize, or maybe they disclose to you, like, and I think I did this a little bit too when we had our conversation, like when they disclose to you, like, hey, I have not ever found my people, have not ever felt like I was good at peopling, right? Or they say something along those lines. Like, where would somebody like that start, with you, or what would you offer up to them?
Yeah, well, I have so many thoughts. It's why I love
Uh,
being a coach, because
yeah.
I love getting to work with people. And I always help explain the difference between a counselor and a coach. This is a good
Okay.
question to do that, because a counselor really helps dig into all of those past experiences and unpack those,
Yeah.
and can be a really important part of working through those past triggers and traumas that we might have. For myself
Yeah.
as a coach, and what coaches do is we meet you where you are right now and help you
Mm-hmm.
move forward to where you want to grow to from here to there. And how do we get there? So I often start with mindset with people, and we get into what are any of those limiting beliefs that might be hanging out, where we are thinking, oh, I just can't connect to people, or I will never know how to collaborate with someone. It's not my skill set or my ability to influence people, so I'm just not able to do that. Oh, I'm never going to be the light in the room. I'm an introvert, which, by the way, I'm an introvert as well. There's so much power in being an introvert.
Yeah.
And so starting with those, whatever those beliefs are, and I actually do a practice where we just write out what are any of those limiting beliefs. And then on the other side of that paper, we write out, okay, but what evidence do you have to the contrary? Have you
Mm.
ever connected to a person? Have you ever been a part of a team? Have you ever been in a collaboration before? Have you ever felt yourself in that flow of energy where really everything was clicking and moving? You weren't in your mind second guessing yourself. You were just enjoying the conversation. And as we're able to start to write down those experiences, sometimes even when we feel like overall we haven't been successful, we've had moments of success, because we're
Mhm.
human. We're built for connection. We've
Mhm.
had some moments where we've been able to be our true selves, maybe not to the full extent yet. And that's what I love as a coach, is helping people unleash the full potential of what they can achieve in their own strengths. But I think it's important to start with those limiting beliefs before you get into then all the good work about what are your strengths, what can you bring, what are you offering to this world and contributing.
I love that you said that, because I didn't even think about one of the barriers that could come up in terms of collaborating with others. Like when founders are new and they're off on this journey and they're launching something, and they're not necessarily they've heard the term collaborations, they know that relationships are important, but they themselves may have those limiting beliefs about, well, I'm not a good collaborator. I've never even, like you were saying, like even been the light, or I think about like dependentness too. Like I'm not going to know how to have that conversation, or even how to make an ask, right? Of like collaborating with somebody else. And that's just never been my strength. So they almost, I could see someone turning off that piece or that strategy of collaborations to grow their business, and not even considering it because that isn't their strength. And for you to recognize or to bring up that it's something that someone can actually work through in terms of like their mindset and thinking about their limiting beliefs, and you gave some tactics. I appreciate you saying that and kind of just bringing that to light. So when somebody, now that they've had some time to kind of overcome some of those limiting beliefs, and they've made a decision that collaborations are important and relationships are important, and then they hear this term authenticity, right? what does an authentic connection actually mean?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. It's part of my purpose in life, I feel like, is helping connect people to authentic, meaningful experiences and those real connections. And so, where I start with authenticity is really saying, just tune into your own intuition for a moment. Think about a feeling, an experience you had where you felt like you were fully aligned with yourself. You were bringing the full sense of who you are, because we all have that intuitive sense of what is true to us that we can tap into. I think in terms of helping to define it, it's really being able to bring your full perspective, your values, your sense of who you are, your strengths, your points of view on the world, and being able to share those freely and openly without that little voice that can screen what we're saying sometimes, or think about how the other person is reacting to it. Without that voice, we bring our full sense of who we are and are equally creating space for the other person to bring all of that for who they are. I think it's really important that that's a part of authenticity. We're not competing for the floor or trying to control the situation. We're not trying to convince someone of our worth or how great we are. We're really just being able to unleash fully who we are. And I had a coach that I worked with. Her name was Karen Capello. She did an activity that I still use to this day. Before I go into any potential client meeting, before I do any kind of thing, even like this, talking with you today, if you picture, and so I'll do it with you because I'm curious to see what will come up for you.
I'm ready.
I love it. I love it. So if you picture a time when you were meeting with a potential client, or you were engaging maybe with a trusted friend, but talking to them about your business, somehow engaging about your business, and you were fully yourself. You were really able to just be in that flow. You felt like it was your best energy. You didn't have that little voice thinking anything about the interaction. You were in the interaction, very present in that interaction. Think about, how would you describe what you were bringing into that interaction and what you were really offering and unleashing from yourself in that interaction in only 2 or 3 words. So my 2 or 3 words are joyful, wise, connection. Because for me, I feel like when I'm really tapped in to myself, I'm enjoying the other person. I'm not in my head overthinking, which is what I can do sometimes. I'm just enjoying the moment. And the wisdom part comes for me because in my past, sometimes I've turned that down to not want to be too much, to not want to showboat about what I know. But when I'm really authentic, I'm openly sharing insights and knowledge and expertise that I have. And the connection part, of course, is core to who I am. I want people to feel seen and heard and valued, and to feel like there's that synergy that's happening in some deep, meaningful way. So those are my words, but I would encourage you and everyone who's listening, what are your 2 or 3 words that when you think about that authentic energy, you can claim, hey, this is my energy. And before you go into a client meeting, channel that so that you are tapping into your best self.
I love that so much. And I think that, I have a lot to talk about relationships, right? In terms of experience, like almost like bad experience, right? So I feel like I have a lot to draw from. And when you think about 3 words, for me, I thought like immediately the word helpful came to mind. Is like, I want to be helpful to the other person. The other word is inspirational. But when that inspiration word came up, I do recall moments where I do feel in flow with the conversation and I say something that might connect deeply with someone or inspire them in not me inspiring them, but them seeing themselves, right? And being inspired in something that they're doing. And then I feel like when they not reciprocate, but when they react, it's almost like, I can't explain. I don't know if I have the words, but it's almost like this burst of like too much energy for me to handle back. So I almost try not to do that or to go that deep sometimes, because that energy back, it's almost like I can't handle it. Like I can't, it's almost like a responsibility that I feel, and maybe that's the wrong reaction I'm having, but like, or I'm thinking like, oh, now I'm responsible of some sort, right? Like, I don't know. It's so interesting because this, and I say this because this happened to me very recently where, I connected with someone and I shared something and you saw like this light bulb go off, and then it was like this emotion of like gratitude back. And then I was almost like, okay, I'm done. Okay, goodbye. I'm glad that my words helped. And then now I want to go back into my shell and like run away. Right. Which I think it's like, I don't want to have that reaction, but that's like the natural reaction. Right. And so that came up for me. I just wanted to share that like, I think there is a lot of like, in general, I don't think it's talked about enough, but this relationship trauma, it impacts like how we work. It impacts our relationships. It impacts how we collaborate with other people. It impacts everything, this relationship trauma. And I think that even just talking about it, even just knowing that moving forward, I can go into a conversation. Even I just thought about 2 words, because I still want to be inspirational. But I wanted to share that, sometimes it's not linear. That's a tactic I want to try. But then I recognize that I have this like reaction back when I do it right, I guess you can say, right?
Yeah. I mean, I love that you shared that. It's something I appreciate about you. You're willing to be so vulnerable and open about what's really going on. And can we just celebrate the amazing self-awareness it takes to realize that about yourself too? I think that's step 1, right? Is just being aware of, hey, I feel like I'm starting to feel uncomfortable, or I feel like I'm starting to shut down. What's going on here? What just happened? And getting curious about it, right? That's the best way to figure out what's really going on and how to lean into our authenticity. And so anyway, I would love to chat with you more about that, because now I want to unpack all that and really get into it, which we won't do here. But
no, and I appreciate. You're like, this is not a life coaching. Okay.
I'm about to go into coach mode.
Exactly. Okay, so how would that, like, taking the conversation back to collaborations, like, if that were to happen, here's my theory, and this could be something that you see as a theme for your clients that you're working with, is you're almost scared to be that leader.
Yeah.
Right? Almost scared to be seen as, even though you might, the person may be equipped, they have the people skills, they have the self-awareness, they have the things. I think it could be a fear of being a leader, because when we think about leaders, we think about someone that's responsible and someone that's responsible to lead other people through whatever they're going to, even if it's a moment, or you're leading a community, or you're leading a collaboration, because in a collaboration, you're both leading, right? And so you have to be that leader. So I think that leads us to our perfect question. How can we stay grounded in our unique leadership presence when pitching a collaboration to someone we view higher than us? So maybe this kind of ties in a little bit, I think, about
totally.
Or how are we okay and get grounded in being the leader that I know that we want to be, right? I can speak for myself, but might be a little like shying away from being seen in that light in a way. And I don't even think it's conscious, because I think when you ask leaders, are you a leader? They're like, yeah, I'm a leader, right? Like, of course, but it's this internal narrative.
Totally. So first, I want to say I was just in a room. I went to an event with about 300 entrepreneurs, and we were getting into some deep work, kind of group coaching style, about the biggest fears as entrepreneurs. And 2 of the biggest fears that came up, one, you might guess would be fear of failure. But the other one that came up is exactly what you're describing. So many people said, I'm afraid of success. I'm afraid of what that will mean if I actually do all these things that I'm dreaming of, because I don't really know how to handle that. That would be a new situation. And it you know, for different reasons, it might be responsibility. It might be the unknown, the ambiguity that's there. And so it's first, I just want to acknowledge, right? If you are feeling that way, you, other people listening, we're all in that same boat. It's a very human thing to have these fears pop up. And so one of my,
I'm sorry, real quick before you go on, are you saying that fear of leadership ties back to fear of success in some sort?
Yes. So I want to share a resource. There was a neurologist who did some research named David Rock, and he created a very simple model to help with collaborations as we kind of identify times we're moving into this like fight or flight fear mode. And he called it SCARF. And SCARF is an acronym for all these different things that can pop up. And the first one is the one you just mentioned in your question. It's status, right? Oh, what's my status? Is this person more successful than me, less successful than me? Are they sort of higher power than me? They have more influence than me. I'm less. We're constantly just wired to be looking for our status in relationship to other people. And then the C is certainty, right? When we're going into situations and we don't know, like, what's going to happen if I talk to this person? How's it going to go? I don't know what's going to happen. The third is autonomy. That one comes up a little bit more in team or group assignments. And then the R is relatedness, meaning trust. How much can I trust this person? How open or vulnerable can I be with this person? And the last one is fairness, right? If I do something for you or with you, are you going to reciprocate that? And even when you and I have chatted before, that's not who we want to be. We want to be people who give and serve freely and are out there changing the world in that approach. But these are hardwired things that pop up for us. It's built in as a human. We're going to have these struggles, and those built-in things can lead to the kinds of fears that we're talking about. And so some of the best ways, I think, to combat that is, one, get curious. Because when we're curious, we can't be afraid. We can't be both afraid and curious at the same time. So when I start to feel really afraid, and there are so many days as an entrepreneur, it's like, what did I do? I must have been crazy. Or, oh, I failed again. There it is. Okay, that didn't work. And so when that happens, for me, my favorite thing is to get really curious and start to dig in. Well, what really happened? What actually happened here? Why am I feeling this way? What triggered this? Have I had these experiences before? What was really the impact of that? Am I okay? Am I not okay? Like, let's check in realistically what's going on. And as you can get curious, we can start to move away from those fears and then move into a space to answer your question. How can I show up in my full value in a collaboration where maybe I am feeling one of those criteria? I'm feeling less status or less successful than this person that I want to pitch a collaboration to. But when we can lean into our strengths, then we are really able to show up in the fullness of who we are. So we got our label, our words, but also knowing our strengths. And some people have done a lot of work around this, taking assessments. There's so many good assessments out there. There's free ones like 16 Personalities. There's paid ones like Clifton Strengths. And they're a great place to start if you're like, I don't really know what my strengths are or how to tap into those top strengths. That's one thing I love as a coach, is working with people in unpacking those strengths, because what I always say is nobody knows your strengths as well as you do. Those assessments are just a starting point. You're the expert on you and your strengths, because strengths are not just what you're good at. they're also what you love, what you enjoy, what you're passionate about, what you want to do. We all have things we're good at that we don't want to do. So leaning into and knowing. So for example, for me, connectedness is one of my top strengths, as you might guess. I love seeing connections between systems, between people, between the world and what's happening in events in the world. Yeah. I love facilitating connections. And because I know that's a strength, I can lean into that when I'm going into a conversation with someone that I'm feeling like, oh, what do I have to offer in this conversation? So I think it's really tapping into knowing those strengths, leaning into those strengths and leaning into your purpose. You know, what is your why? Why are you here? Why are you running your business? Why did you do this crazy thing of saying, I'm going to start and run my own business, which is not for the faint of heart. It is a hard thing to do, but you've chosen to do this really hard thing. So there's something driving you to do that. And it's like, what is that thing that's driving you? That's your why. That's your purpose. And being able to lean into that is really important. So when you're entering into those conversations, you know what it is that you're bringing.
Oh, I love that. And I think it ties back to also choosing the right collaboration type that your strengths are in, right? And then also when you're pitching, like the question was, when you're pitching to a collaboration to someone that you view higher up, you're saying the strategy is to lean into your strengths and also lean into your why. So lean into your strengths, I took that as making sure that when I'm pitching a collaboration, it's leaning on the strengths that I have to bring to that collaboration, and that could influence or will influence the collaboration type, because there may be collaborations that I may not be super comfortable in. So for example, if somebody's not comfortable making or doing interviews, right? And that's just not their thing. They just don't, that's not where they shine the best. Probably pitching to do an interview is not the best for when you're pitching to someone higher up, right? If we're just kind of sticking with that theme, I'm really pitching to anyone, but pitching to someone higher up, because when you show up, you're not going to be your best, right? I'm sure you'll do fine, but you're not going to be your best, right? So your best is pitching collaboration types that are suitable for you and your strengths. And then also your why. So what came up for me is freedom. One of the things I'm taking from this conversation is I run my business for freedom. And I love to see when people are able to express, there's this thing I have with expressing yourselves and people being able to express their silly selves. That's why I really love TikTok and scrolling, because I get to see people be silly, you know what I mean? And so I love that. And I think that to me, that's freedom. It ties back to this theme of freedom that I love. And so I think that what I'm taking from the conversation is that when I'm moving forward, and what I want other people to take from the conversation as well, is when you move forward, leaning into your why. If your why is freedom, talking about that in your pitch, right? In some way tying it back, or even just explaining this is who I am and why I do what I do. And at the end of the day, I want freedom, whatever it might be. And maybe it doesn't have to get that deep, but if you need it, or you're right, if you need to say something about, maybe it's to someone you don't even know, right, that's higher up than you, and you're I see that you talk a lot about the freedom of being an entrepreneur, and you're promoting this to your clients. I think I'd be a great collaboration partner, because I also value the freedom, and I think that value aligns, right, with what you're doing, and our missions align, and what we're trying to do for our audiences. So that's what I'm taking away from the conversation, if I got that right.
Yeah. No, totally. I love where you went with that, because I think it's absolutely true. Finding that alignment, which starts with us knowing ourselves. It's why I always think leaders need to start with their own self work, because until you really know what is my why, what are my strengths, what are my values, it's impossible to try to find alignment with someone else in those things. So I think once we've done the work, then we can share that. And, I had an experience early on in my business where someone came to me, and it was a high up COO for an organization that's very well known in San Antonio. And they said, we need to do some OKRs, some objectives and key results.
Mm-hmm.
Now, listen, my business is all about the human side of leadership. I can do strategy planning like OKRs because I was a strategic advisor. That is not what I want to be doing right now. I'm all about helping people tap into themselves and others, not really setting their objectives and key results. But I was at the beginning of my business, so I was looking for business. I said, okay. So we went into the conversation, but what happened was, because that wasn't in alignment with what I really want to do in the business, my passion was not there for it. As I was pitching and talking about, it was not there. They ended up not moving forward with me, and I do not blame them because we were not aligned, right? I was not able to bring my why and say, my why is to connect people to authentic, meaningful experiences that are going to propel them to unleash their full selves and create legacy impact in their communities. That's my why. And because that wasn't aligned, I wasn't able to pitch with the kind of intention, focus, passion, presentation, attention to detail that I would have had it been something aligned.
I love that. I almost just want to pause because it just, I feel, first of all, I think this interview is fantastic. I think you've shared so much. And if somebody watches this all the way through, and I hope you're watching this all the way through, there's a lot of gems in this interview. And just to it's just a validation to make sure that you think through who you're collabing with, making sure you choose the right collaboration and the right collaboration partners too, because that partner might have, a different mission or they're, like you said, the business may have, a particular need, right? And although you can do it, it wasn't part of your values and what you really wanted to do, and that shine through. So I love that. So, okay. I'm looking at our questions. This comes up, and I think you kind of touched on this, but I'm going to ask the question and see if maybe there's something that comes up that we may have missed. But how do you find your own value in a collaboration? If somebody's saying, I have nothing to offer, collaborations might not be my thing because I'm either newer, or maybe they're mid-management, right? Or they're not necessarily seeing themselves as having something to offer. So how would you help somebody find their own value?
Yeah, I love what Brené Brown has to say. Of course, she's the ultimate expert on knowing our value and worth and how we interact with shame and how that comes up. But she says on the topic of her worth and value, I will not negotiate my worth. And we could substitute value. I will not negotiate my value. I will negotiate a contract. I will negotiate a topic or a possibility. I will not negotiate my value. So I think starting point number one for me is always to encourage people, know your inherent value, right? Going into the room, it's not a question of whether you have value or not to add. You have value. You have inherent value because you have unique strengths and a unique life experience that no other human on this planet has. You are the one that has that special combination. And there is value in that life lived that you have to offer to someone. And so that's non-negotiable. Now, is it a right fit? We've already talked through, there's something to think about there, but knowing your value, that's not negotiable, that's inherent, is really important. I think then the challenge becomes, how do I communicate that to somebody if I'm in the room and I'm not really sure? And for me, it's really talk about your work, talk about your stories. I had an experience early on as an entrepreneur. I went into a coffee shop with someone, as we do, go for coffee with everyone as an entrepreneur. And so we went in, and he's a fellow consultant, also had not been started very long. And he said, oh, I'm working on this project, and here's what I'm doing with these leaders, and here's how we're planning, and here's some roadblocks that I'm hitting, and here's another project I'm working on. Not in a bragging way, just in here's what I'm working on. Yeah. And then he looked at me and said, what are you working on? And I left that coffee shop and was driving home, and I thought, he is a genius, because I now understand so clearly what he can offer, how I could talk about him to other people, how we might be able to work together, because he gave me real examples of work that he's doing. And so I have used that ever since. Talk about the projects that you're doing. You never know where that could lead. And it doesn't have to be in person. For me, that's pretty uncomfortable. I'm still learning how to do that. My outlet has been on LinkedIn. And so I love to write. I love to post as an introvert. And so I'm still learning all of that space too. But I've been posting on LinkedIn, hey, here's a new project I'm doing. I'm coaching this person. My coaching client had this win. I'm launching into leadership in the outdoors projects. I'm partnering with this person. Yay. Yeah. And it's more just as a share and celebration, right? And so, and people want to hear that. They want to hear what we're working on. And because of that, just this past week, I had someone reach out to me and say, hey, I'm a leadership consultant. I've started my own business. I want to partner with you. And I want to get into the nonprofit space and run an offering for nonprofit leaders. Meanwhile, I'm over here. I've made so many connections with nonprofit leaders this year and haven't known what to do with them. I haven't had any ideas for how to move forward with each of these connections. Immediately her saying, let's just put something together for all the leaders, not do one-on-ones, just put something together. Best collaboration ever. So by telling our stories, right? By telling who we are, what we do, it can really help people understand more about us, more about what we do, and leave space, open the door for collaborations we don't even know might come.
Yes. Oh my God, I'm so glad you shared that. I think that was like a gem within a gem. So sharing open that door. Like you said, you weren't even thinking that could be an option, at least not right now. You weren't even thinking about that. That's right. And someone approaching you just by sharing your story, just by sharing your wins, by sharing what you were working on, they saw. And one of the things I put into the collaboration relationship management system in a box is this checkbox of like checking someone's competence. And what I meant by that was when you're sussing out a collaboration partner, right? When you're looking at like whether or not they're a good fit or not, you have to see, like either ask through a coffee chat or through several conversations sometimes what they're working on so they can demonstrate competence in that area. Because sometimes, and this is a problem with collaborations with online business owners, is that the person may say, yes, I'm good, let's do this collab. And then they don't really have the strength or maybe the credibility that they needed, or maybe the delivery to their clients is like not at the level that you want it to be at, where you're at, the expertise level. And so you almost get into this collaboration with someone that you really don't want to be in a collaboration with. So checking out, I think even just sharing also touches on, sussing out the competence. That person, you gave them an opportunity to suss out the competence that you had in the skills that you had in what you were doing because of the way that you were talking about it and the openness. So I think that's excellent. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Totally. I just have to say, I love that you have created a system for this. It's so exciting to me because of course it aligns, and that's why we're able to collab on helping people find ways to connect. And so you are such an expert at creating systems and processes. And so I love that you've channeled that into helping other people connect.
For sure. Yeah. Well, you and I have had several conversations about the whole like relationship thing. And, you know, the collaboration relationship management system in a box stemmed from a relationship management system that I had to build for myself to know what to say and how to even talk, like what should I do to progress a relationship forward, because I genuinely did not know. And I didn't feel comfortable like knowing how to navigate this entrepreneur world of business. And like, you know, they tell you to be authentic. And I had a friend, Patricia, remind me that you could be authentic and strategic at the same time. And that came up for me. So that was kind of like, you know, something that I've been working on for myself for years. And then it turned into, you know, helping clients build out the system. And then I took it one step further this year with collaborations, because I know that, especially with last year, you know, in the beginning of the year, I heard a lot of like business owners going back to their 9-to-5s, going back to this. And I know that the theme, or there's a lot of chatter around using collaborations. And I honestly didn't know the power behind it until I actually started to collab, of like the power, the way that you can move your business forward and really help each other out by getting into collaborations and just making it part of your attraction management strategy on how you're bringing business in. One way to do that is through collaborations, and it's an important way. And I also think, just not to be on a soapbox, but I also think that this topic of relationships in general, like relationships have never gone out of style ever for business, and they aren't going anywhere. It's always going to be based on relationships, and everything that we talk about when we talk about business and getting clients of any sort, it always comes back to the relationship. Even having the relationship within your client in the delivery phase, right? Maintaining that relationship even after you deliver, it's all centers around this. And I think what's important is that, and in what you've dropped today for the audience is a lot. And the fact that you come back to being connected, one, being connected with others, but also you're being authentic to yourself through finding your strengths, finding your values, finding your why, those things that all came up here. So Kristin, thank you, first of all, for being here and sharing your expertise. So let's hear what you have going on right now, or in the next month or so, right? In the next month or so. And how can people find you, and what do you have going on? Yeah, let's start there.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. This has been such a great synergistic conversation. It's the kind that we both love. So I really appreciate it. And thank you for sharing the info at the bottom of the screen there. Yes, please connect with me on Instagram. I'm a new Insta user. That only happened when I started my business. So I'm still learning that one. LinkedIn is my business home. I love LinkedIn as my main platform. So please connect with me there. I would love to add people, add connections, get to know who you are. I also offer a free 30-minute consultation as a coach. So if you're thinking, hey, you know, I'm resonating with what they're talking about, I feel like I would like to have a coach to help me dig into understanding my value and how to communicate that and my strengths and my why, and to really tap into pushing forward and some breakthroughs to the next level. I love working with high achievers. That tends to be the people that I'm really drawn to, and they can all do that work on their own. I always say, as a coach, my real function is just to help people not have to go through the painful slowness of that transformation, but to get the support you need to propel faster, unleash your greatness faster. And so if that is something that people are interested in, please connect with me. I would love to chat more with you. I can share really more what that looks like, what I offer. But I'm also offering a 10% discount for anyone who has listened this far, made it with us, and is like, I want to get some coaching for 5 sessions of coaching. So I would love, just let me know, ALICIA Lozano, just drop the name and I will offer that discount on coaching, and would love to connect with anyone who's interested in that. Yeah. Oh, thanks for typing it in. You're so fast.
I was like this.
Live. I know. I love it.
We got it scrolling. So awesome. And thank you so much for your time and your leadership on this call. And also just like helping me reflect. This is also very helpful for me, you know, and
Awesome.
I just appreciate you and appreciate your time that you took sharing with the audience and addressing some of the things I know that have come up for me. So they're coming up for other people and that have been in other conversations that I've had with other people around relationships, authenticity, you know, the fear of leadership and those kinds of things. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And till next time, thank you everyone who's
That's
watching.
amazing. Thank you.